Part 163. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Liao. Chapter 1631. After careful consideration, Zhang Xi finally only sent the videos of the living room, bathroom, and bedroom to Suche. As for the video of drinking water captured by the kitchen surveillance, she did not send it. Anyway, Suche lived outside these few days, and the bottled water would not be available for a while, so it should be no problem to dispose of it in time. She asked Suche to meet after get off work. Suche had to work overtime that night, so Zhang Xi took his subordinate Xiao to the hospital to meet him directly, but Suche was in the operating room and would not be able to come out for a while, so Zhang Xi had to go back to the car and wait for him. Nothing to do, take out the deceased's information and look through it. Li Xiaoli, 17 years old, from Yuxiang village, Zainan town, works in a clothing factory. For some villages and towns with poor economic conditions, this is the norm. In order to get rid of poverty, young boys and girls will go to the city to work as soon as they reach the age of 16. Some even falsely report their age and start working before they are 16 years old. The reason why Li Xiaoli was admitted to the hospital was that the dormitory building had been in disrepair for a long time, and the balcony railing was loose, which caused her to fall from a height and hurt her leg. Zhang Xi sighed in her heart. The girl had already fallen once, and she fell again when she died. Judging from the surveillance video, the woman who played tricks at Suche's house should not be this Li Xiaoli. To die is to die, there is no doubt about it. Zhang Xi was just a little puzzled, because from Suche's description, the other party had a good impression of him at best, and even if he really had a crush on him, it was absolutely impossible for him to commit suicide. Is it possible that Suche lied in order to distance himself from the relationship? Suche really doesn't look like a liar. And that ball of paper, too, was weird. Zhang Xi was in the police station and was often involved in murder cases. He also encountered several times when he committed suicide by jumping off a building because of love. The so-called last words and suicide notes are most commonly found in the pockets of the suicide victim's clothes. Some people commit suicide, paying more attention to the sense of ritual. They will stack the suicide notes neatly, place them on the roof, press a corner with a heavy object, and then jump down by themselves to end their lives. But this Li Xiaoli held the last words in her palms, crumpled. "Boss, are you still studying this?" Xiao in the back seat stretched his neck and looked over. "You have read this suicide note 800 times. It feels a little strange." Zhang Xi looked at it for a while, but couldn't see why, so she put it aside and reached out to take out a pack of cigarettes. Zhang Xi's arm hadn't healed yet. Xiao took out a lighter, helped her light it up, and said, "It's quite strange, people are going to die, so what else can't be said? What acrostics?" Zhang Xi smiled, "Little girl, every family is more romantic." Makes sense. After smoking one cigarette, he smoked another, originally to refresh his mind, but after waiting for too long, Zhang Xi and Xiao started to feel sleepy, and Suche still didn't get off work. The two sat in the car, dozing off one after the other. After an unknown amount of time, Zhang Xi opened his eyes when he heard someone knocking on the car window, and saw Suche standing outside the car with a tired expression on his face. "I'll go and drive the car over," Suche said. Zhang Xi hurriedly said, "Why don't you take my car? You have just had an operation, driving while fatigued is very dangerous." Xiao also agreed deeply, "Yes, Dr. Su, anyway, the place you live is not too far away, so there is no need to take risks for such a few steps." Suche thought for a while, but without insisting, he opened the car door and got in. He was indeed extremely tired. The operation took several hours and required a lot of energy and physical strength. Now he just wanted to rest. Suche sat in the back seat of the car and closed his eyes to rest his mind, without saying a word. Jiang Xi glanced at him from the rearview mirror, adjusted the speed of the car silently, and did not go on a rampage. Xiao Hu leaned his head forward, a wretched smile appeared on his face, and his voice was very low. "Boss, do you think you are sympathetic?" Jiang Xi glared at him. "Get lost. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again." Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1632. Xiao Hu does not roll. He continued to smile. "Hey, actually, Dr. Su's condition is very good, he looks so handsome, and it's rare that he's not gay." "Boss, you're not young anymore, shouldn't you think about major life issues?" "How do you know he's not?" Jiang Xi asked. Baizai said, "He said Dr. Su was just dumped by his girlfriend recently, and the little nurses in the hospital are all ready to move." Xiao Hu said, "Usually we will inevitably get hurt and bleed." "Boss, you put Su, the doctor can handle it, and it will be more convenient for us to reimburse our medical expenses in the future." Jiang Xi sarcastically said, "If you want to get reimbursed easily, you might as well settle the accountants of our police station. Sister Wang is almost 50. 30 is like a wolf and 40 is like a tiger. At 50, she can sit on the ground and suck up dirt. It hurts." Xiao Hu's ears were tightly pinched by Jiang Xi, and he screamed in pain, and he barely made a 360-degree turn. Su Che woke up with a start, and opened his eyes, only to see Xiao Hu retracted while covering his ears, with a pained expression on his face. "What's going on?" Su Che wondered. "It's okay." Jiang Xi, who was driving in front, said, "He was dishonest in the car and hit the back of the seat." Yes, Xiao Hu nodded hastily, and explained with a dry smile, "I accidentally bumped into it. Dr. Su, you go to sleep, I'm fine, he. I'm already awake, so there's no need to sleep again, let alone it's almost here. It takes about a quarter of an hour to drive to the outside of the community." In order to facilitate his work, Su Che purposely bought an apartment here. There are security guards at the front and rear doors, surveillance cameras at the entrance of the corridor and inside and outside the elevator, so it stands to reason that it is impossible for anyone to break into it. Jiang Xi asked Su Che, "Do you know the woman in the video?" Su Che shook his head, "I don't know." Seeing the tiredness in his eyes, and having to deal with this kind of harassment incident, Jiang Xi couldn't help feeling a little more sympathetic, and comforted him in a gentle tone, "Don't worry, we have checked the surveillance, and the elevator was not in the car at that time. Anyone who comes in or out, the other party should be a resident who lives on the same floor as you. I have asked Baizai to investigate." Residents on the same floor, Su Che was slightly taken aback. It is indeed possible. After all, there was no surveillance in the aisle, and the neighbor could sneak into his house without going through the surveillance and shooting area. As for how to open the door, maybe she had found a locksmith and provided him with a key for his house. Moreover, in such an apartment building, the neighbor relationship is almost zero. They are all strangers, and they may not know each other no matter how long they live. But what about those dreams? How did she do it? Drugged him, so he hallucinated? Su Che couldn't figure it out. The elevator dinged, the door opened, and another of Jiang Xi's subordinates was waiting outside. "I found it." Baizai handed over a list. "This is the resident information obtained from the property, and the name of one of them is circled. Xiao Tingting, who lives in room 1604, is a major suspect. She is not at home now, but the time is right, and some witnesses saw her enter Dr. Su's house. The witnesses thought they knew each other, so they didn't care." Baizai took out his phone again, pulled out a photo, and handed it to Su Che. "This is a photo downloaded from her Weibo space, can you see if you remember it?" Su Che was stunned, then nodded slowly, "I have a Impression. Zhang Si asked, when did you meet? About half a year ago, in the underground garage, her car was lying across the middle of the road. She reversed her car many times but failed to get into the parking space. However, she happened to block my car, so I parked her car for her once, Suche explained. Did you pay attention to what she was doing when you helped her park the car? Zhang Si said, it was probably at that time that she stole your keys. There are now wax models for replicating keys on the market. It needs to be put into the mold for embossing, and the mold of the key can be obtained in as little as 2 seconds, and then the real key can be made with the mold. Suche was puzzled, but why did she? Zhang Si twitched the corner of her mouth. A pervert doesn't need a reason. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1633. When the group arrived at Suche's house, Suche immediately removed all the sheets and bedding, and threw the pillows on the ground. Taking advantage of his inattention, Zhang Si sneaked into the kitchen, poured out all the bottled water, and asked Beizai and Xiaohu to take out the empty bottle and throw it away. But in this way, the refrigerator became empty, and she saw that Suche didn't seem to trust the bottled water outside. He always drank bottled water. Now that she poured out all the water, what did Suche drink? Zhang Si felt embarrassed for a moment, walked out of the kitchen and looked into the bedroom, where Suche was spraying disinfectant. She winked at Beizai and Xiaohu, help clean up, see if there are any disgusting places, throw away everything that can be thrown away. Boss, we are from the criminal investigation team. Before Beizai could finish his sentence, Xiaohu suddenly attacked him and cut off the back of his head. How can there be so much nonsense? We are all public servants of the people, understand? I am for the people, and the people are for me. Zhang Si didn't bother to watch them play tricks, so she turned and went out, and went downstairs to buy water. When she left, Beizai was still muttering, when did your ideological awareness become so high? Xiaohu's expression was very subtle, it's not that I have a high awareness, it's that the boss has a high awareness. What? Beizai stopped and looked at him strangely. Don't you think she is very gentle today? Xiaohu winked. Beizai recalled, boss seems to be speaking softer today. You didn't take her car, you drove so cautiously today. Xiaohu suppressed his turbulent mood, and described in a low voice how gentle and considerate Zhang Si was, how unusual he was, in order not to disturb Suche's rest, driving slowly all the way, without even smoking a cigarette. The chat made Beizai's blood boil. You mean, eldest sister has a crush on Dr. Su? 80% yes. That's not right, boss has a psychological barrier. When he sees a beautiful man, he thinks he's gay. But the problem is, she can't like someone who looks ugly, Xiaohu said, it's rare to meet a handsome man who is not gay. Can she not fall in love? Beizai still felt that it was unreal and didn't quite believe it. Just at this time Zhang Si came back with a few bottles of water. Xiaohu immediately snickered, and gently pushed Beizai's arm, am I right? Beizai suddenly realized and nodded. Suche walked out of the room carrying a large pile of sheets and quilts, all of which were ready to be thrown away. Beizai and Xiaohu Kikai looked at him and thought, Zhang Si is their eldest sister, so Dr. Su is their eldest brother-in-law. Dr. Su, let us do the rough work. Beizai took the lead and quickly carried the pile of things in Suche's arms. Xiaohu also did his part, picked up the unwanted pillow on the floor. Yes, Dr. Su, your hands are so precious, they are the hands that save lives and heal the wounded. Suche. Zhang Si was also puzzled, and muttered to himself, what are these two guys doing? There are only him and her left in the room, and the embarrassment wanders silently in the air. What do we need to do next? Suche asked her. Let's change the door lock. Jiang Si thought for a while, and, regarding the outcome of this kind of case, you need to be mentally prepared, and the punishment will not be too heavy. What is the usual punishment? Her behavior is indeed illegal, trespassing on other people's houses, but, as you have seen, there is no malicious damage to property, nor does it endanger your personal safety. It is not enough for criminal punishment. Usually, you will be detained for less than 15 days, fined less than 200 yuan or given a warning. Suche listened silently, with an indifferent expression, showing no joy or regret. Jiang Si was even more upset. How pitiful. Obviously suffered serious psychological harm, but there is really no way to severely punish this kind of behavior. Don't worry, I will educate her well, Jiang Si assured him. She will never dare to harass you again. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1634. By the way, this is the water I just bought. Jiang Si put the plastic bag on the coffee table. The ones in your refrigerator have been there for many days, and I threw them away on my own initiative, don't you mind? Suche was slightly taken aback, obviously a little surprised. Jiang Si seemed to be overzealous in buying water. Thank you, he pondered for a moment, and then said, are you free on the weekend? Let me treat you to dinner. I have worked hard for you these days. Jiang Si hastily declined, no need, you helped to heal my arm, maybe I will trouble you again at some point, don't worry about such a trivial matter. Speaking of her arm, Suche's eyes could not help falling on the bandage. Although the wound has healed, you still have to be as careful as possible, don't lift heavy objects, don't use too much force, and drive less. Recently, you just now, which arm did you use to lift the water? Jiang Si froze for a moment, no injured arm. Suche nodded solemnly, well, you should pay more attention at ordinary times. Jiang Si nodded slightly. It's strange to say that she always felt awkward when getting along with him. She was shy, and couldn't be chic. Sure enough, it was because of psychological shadow, right? Shadow, oh shadow. When the trash-throwing Baizai and Xiao came back, Jiang Si heaved a sigh of relief as if he was out of trouble, and left. She left the steamed stuffed bun to wait for Xiao Ting, while Xiao needed to go back to the department to keep a record and say hello to the colleagues in charge of the area. Jiang Si is still on vacation, and now she can go home and rest. She got into the car, and the doctor's order sounded in her mind for no reason, I don't drive too much recently. Jiang Si stared at her arm, thinking, at worst, just drive slowly. Drive on the road. Qingjiang City at night is not quiet at all, there is an endless stream of oncoming vehicles on the road, and the lights of the cars are dazzling, making her upset. Jiang Si drives very wildly, and she is used to driving fast. It is not her style to wander around so slowly. She has been holding back for a long time, and she is really not used to it. He was hesitating whether to speed up, but suddenly felt something was wrong. It was too dark around. This is a city, not a country road. Even if there are no street lights, the billboards of shops on both sides of the street are enough to illuminate. Why is it so dark? Jiang Si held the steering wheel, drove for a while in doubt, then freed up one hand to turn on the phone, call up the map, and check her current location. At this time, I suddenly felt someone beside me. She looked sideways, and her brain suddenly buzzed. She saw a girl. That girl was sitting in the co-pilot seat, wearing a hospital gown, striped, clearly. Is it a ghost? Jiang Si held her breath, and her blood seemed to freeze. She stared at the other party intently, with nothing but shock and horror in her heart. But the girl didn't look at her, her eyes were straight ahead, her mouth opened and closed silently. Su, Che, I love you. Jiang Si didn't know what to think at the moment, her mind was blank. Suddenly there was a sharp screeching sound ahead, and then something collided, and there was a loud bang. Jiang Si lost consciousness. Su Che fell asleep quickly after Jiang Si and the others left. He had a spare brand new mattress at home, so he didn't delay his rest, and today's operation was exhausting, so he fell asleep almost as soon as he lay down. I fell asleep for less than 2 hours, and received a call from the hospital. Dr. Su, a car accident patient just came to the hospital. His name is Jiang Si, and he is your patient. He is currently undergoing emergency treatment. Can you come over quickly? Su Che was in a trance for a while, almost thinking that he was dreaming. When she left, she said that she might trouble him again at some point. Isn't this too fast? Well, take it easy to find the feeling. Blessed to have each other in this life. Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1635. Su Che hurried to the hospital and was relieved to learn that Jiang Si was out of danger. Fortunately in misfortune. 1. The oncoming vehicle brakes in time. 2nd, Jiang Si's jeep is strong enough. 3rd, Jiang Si's speed is not fast. It was also because she found that the surroundings were surprisingly dark at that time, so she slowed down the speed of the car. When she took out her mobile phone, she wanted to check if she was going the wrong way. At this time, an accident happened. The driver who caused the accident was wronged. When he learned that the other party was a police officer, he was startled and frightened. He dragged Bao Zi and Xiao Hu outside the ward and cried, "She hit me. I braked, and she hit me straight. Can't avoid it?" No matter how Baozai explained it, he would investigate clearly, but the other party was still making trouble. A big man just hugged their thighs and cried bitterly. Xiao Hu couldn't bear the disturbance, and roared angrily, "Enough! I won't let you lose money." Okay. The driver who caused the accident stopped. When Su Che walked into the ward, the doctor in charge of first aid was also there, and said to him, "The speed of the car is not fast, there is nothing serious, but it turns out that the arm was broken a second time, and a lot of blood was bleeding." Jiang Si on the hospital bed was awake, looking at Su Che helplessly. "How do you feel now?" Su Che walked over to her and asked her. Jiang Si closed her eyes, then opened them again, as if very tired. Su Che said, "Let's rest first, we'll talk about it tomorrow if we have anything to do." Jiang Si shook her head, her movements were slightly larger, and her muscles were sore and uncomfortable. She frowned deeply and said in a low voice, "Su Che, I saw her." Su Che was slightly stunned, and then followed Jiang Si's gaze to see the case information on the small cabinet beside the bed. Turning over a page, it contained Li Xiaoli's suicide note. "There is nothing before the wind and the moon. A copy of Che Yuan Pai Jade. Who do I share with myself? Loving goose gold lace. You cry a lot for love." This acrostic poem, which was handed over to Jiang Si last time, has been left by her side, and now it is stained with blood. Li Xiaoli's soul, maybe, is attached to the suicide note. Jiang Si said weakly, "Su Che, how could you mess with such an infatuated ghost?" Now she was more and more suspicious that Su Che was lying. "If it's just an ordinary secret love, will you still miss it until you die?" Su Che picked up the crumpled piece of paper and was speechless for a moment. He can't figure it out either. Jiang Si had a good night's sleep, and after recovering a little, she called Mu Zi and asked Mu Zi to find a way to deal with it. Mu Zi was confused when she heard this. "Me? How should I deal with it?" "Communicate with her, it pops up from time to time, it's really scary." Jiang Si was worried, and didn't mention her car accident. Mu Zi was even more confused. How do I communicate? I don't know, there must be some way. Zhang Xi sighed, why don't you try brain waves? Anyway, normal people must not be able to communicate. Muzi. 2 minutes later, Muzi sent Du Hao's contact information to Zhang Xi. Zhang Xi couldn't wait for a moment, dragged his sick body, called Du Hao with difficulty, and roughly explained the matter. Du Hao replied, this matter is easy to say and troublesome to do. If evil spirits do evil, exorcising evil spirits is in accordance with the law of heaven, but if the other party has no malicious intentions, interfering without authorization will disrupt the cause and effect. Fate may be affected. After finishing speaking, he paused for a moment, and persuaded, Miss Zhang, you might as well discuss it with that doctor again. My suggestion is to send the soul back to its hometown and let it dissipate naturally, so as not to generate anger and resentment, and cause more troubles. Great disaster. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1636. To Zhang Xi's ears, these words were really ironic. She almost lost her life. Is there a greater disaster than this? But after thinking about it, that Li Xiaoli seemed to have no malicious intentions, she didn't even look at her, she just unconsciously looked forward and murmured I love you. Zhang Xi wondered if the ghost came with the suicide note. Throw away the suicide note? What if it scares someone? Burn the suicide note? What if it gets attached to something else? Throw the suicide note into the river and feed the fish? It's bad enough for a little girl to commit suicide at the age of 17, why bother to kill them all? Zhang Xi was annoyed, and it happened that Su Che came to see her at this time, and Zhang Xi relayed Du Hao's words to him. The mage said that the soul has appeared every day, and now it appears once a few days. It is a manifestation of the reduction of soul power. Even if you don't care about it, it will gradually disappear. But it is best to send it back to the hometown, otherwise it will stay by our side for a long time, will be troublesome. Saying so, she couldn't help but sighed, and continued, the mage also said that there is a way to expel it directly, but they think it is not kind, so they advise us to deal with it properly. This feels really weird. They are clearly two materialists, but they are talking about gods and ghosts. Su Che was silent for a long time, then nodded slowly, just do as the mage said. He brought rice to Zhang Xi, opened the food box, and placed all of them on the small table on the hospital bed. There were soups and vegetables, the colors were refreshing, and even the meat dishes were not greasy. Zhang Xi was surprised, the chefs in the cafeteria are very skilled. Su Che was slightly stunned, and glanced at her, I did it? Huh, Zhang Xi looked up at him. The eyes of the two met, the atmosphere froze for a moment, then became embarrassed again, and they looked away one after another. After a moment of silence, Zhang Xi said, thank you. You got into trouble because you helped me. Su Che put away the medical records and suicide note on the table, I'll take these back. Zhang Xi couldn't help being anxious, thinking that you are busy saving lives and healing the wounded during the day, and you have to be scared by ghosts when you go home at night. Are you not afraid of schizophrenia after a long time? But if it's placed here with her, it doesn't matter. Anyway, she is lying down every day now, even if she bumps into a ghost again, it's no big deal. Stay here with me, Zhang Xi was quick to think, these are all evidence. Su Che. This reason is indeed enough to bluff. Su Che silently put it down and looked at Zhang Xi, in case she appears again. Zhang Xi hurriedly said, our profession, in ancient times, is to catch fast, with its own evil spirit, nothing will happen. After that, lest he would not believe it, he said again, Look, I'm not even in a car accident. Suche. A nurse outside called Dr. Su. Suche glanced at Zhang Si again, hesitated and said, I'll come see you later. Yeah, go get busy, Zhang Si said, I'm fine here. After watching Suche leave the ward, Zhang Si breathed a sigh of relief, turned her head to look at the medical records on the table, and sighed in her heart. Alas, a 17-year-old girl, why can't she think about it? In the afternoon, Xiao Hu came to the hospital to see her. He brought the rice he bought from outside. As soon as he opened the food box, he saw that half of the rice had been poured into the vegetable soup. All in all a mess. The corners of Zhang Si's eyes twitched. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, did you bring me lunch or dinner? The business of the small restaurant in front of the hospital is so good that I waited in line for a long time. The edge of the food box was full of oil. Xiao Hu wanted to find a napkin to wipe it off. Looking around, he saw an empty lunch box on the table. The expression on his face gradually changed. He looked at Zhang Si with a half smile but not a smile. Boss, who brought you the meal? Zhang Si was frank, but after being stared at by him for a long time, she couldn't help feeling a little embarrassed. Can you control it? Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1637. Xiao Hu giggled, I don't care, am I afraid that I will do too much? He picked up the lunch box. Boss, since you've already eaten, let me eat these. Don't waste them. As you like, Zhang Si replied angrily. Xiao Hu was also polite. Hulala ate the food, patted his buttocks and left. Although Zhang Si detested him, he never thought that this guy would stop coming as soon as he left. Xiao Hu didn't show up the next day, probably because he was smart enough to think that Suche would give Zhang Si a meal. Zhang Si's lunch was gone, and her stomach was growling with hunger. I was angry in my heart, and I didn't want to call someone to come over. Anyway, I came to see her jokes. There was a nurse in the hospital, and Zhang Si gave her dozens of yuan to help her go downstairs to buy some food. You have to wait to buy food at this time, the nurse murmured and went with the money. Zhang Si waited on the hospital bed for a long time, and was so hungry that she opened the drawers and doors of the bedside table to look for something to eat. There are fruits in the cabinet that colleagues gave when they came to visit her. Zhang Si took out an orange, which she couldn't peel with one hand, and took out another peach, which was so hairy that no one helped her wash it. For the first time in her life, she felt the pity of being alone. When Suche came to see her, she was sighing at a pile of fruits. Do you need to wash it for you? He turned his head to look around and asked, where's your nurse? I went to buy food for me. It's been almost half an hour and I haven't come back yet. Zhang Si couldn't help complaining, the small restaurant in front of your hospital is doing very well. Before, many small restaurants were closed because of hygiene problems, so the supply is a bit short of demand now. Suche helped her put the fruit into the cabinet. After washing an apple, he thought it was not clean, so he carefully peeled the peel with a knife. Wash the fruit knife first, wipe off the water, and then cut it along the red skin to reveal the white flesh inside. It is clean and clean without a drop of juice. Finally, cut it into small pieces and put it in a disposable transparent plastic lunch box. Here, I handed it to her. Come on first, I'll get you a meal. Zhang Si stared blankly at the sliced fruit in the lunch box, thinking that these were all works of art, and she was a bit reluctant to eat them. Seeing that she was not moving, Suche thought for a while, and suddenly realized. He took a toothpick from the table and stuck it in the fruit. Okay, you can eat it now. Zhang Si, thank you. It's enough to eat half of it. If you eat too much, you won't be able to digest it, Suche ordered, got up and went out. He had just come out of the operating room, and before he had time to eat, he happened to warm up his meal and give it to Zhang Si. Jiang Si looked at the familiar lunchbox in front of her, and even though she had a cheerful personality, she felt embarrassed at the moment. No need, I have asked the nurse to buy it, and the meal will be delivered later. The food in the restaurant is heavy in oil and there are also hidden dangers to hygiene. If you want to take care of your health now, you should eat mine. Suche opened the food box and laid out everything. Maybe because he is a man, there is a lot of rice in the lunch box. The dishes are meat and vegetables, plus a soup. There are not many types, but they are well matched and give people a sense of refinement. Jiang Si thought to herself, compared with Suche, her life is really rough. Do you smoke? Suche asked. Jiang Si froze for a moment, then turned her head and saw that he had opened the drawer, as if he was about to put the fruit knife in it, but saw the cigarette in the drawer. That's what Xiao forgot here, Jiang Si panted out somehow, I quit a long time ago. I know, I can't smoke when I'm sick, right? I know. Suche was silent for a moment, then nodded, smoking is indeed bad. Jiang Si smiled awkwardly, I probably understand why Li Xiaolia likes you. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1638. As a doctor, he is very careful, and what's more frightening, as a man, he is very handsome. Even a little girl can't handle being treated carefully by a handsome man, right? Suche recalled that little girl, frowned inaudibly, and only commented in one sentence, she is quite pitiful. Jiang Si was eating, and asked after hearing the words, why are you so pitiful? During the operation on her, I saw a lot of bruises on her body, both new and old. Abused, Jiang Si's chopsticks stopped, she was very sensitive to such incidents. I don't know, Suche shook his head. He is just a doctor and will not ask other people's privacy on purpose. The person who brought her to see a doctor said that the place where she worked was a group of teenage migrant girls. 7 or 8 people lived in a dormitory. Sometimes they bullied newcomers, similar to campus bullying. It is very difficult to intervene in this kind of matter. Although the child is 16 or 17 years old and half grown like in middle school, there is no teacher's supervision. The supervisor in the factory also turns a blind eye and closes his eyes, and will not interfere too much. Jiang Si thought for a while, but still found it puzzling, if it was because she lacked love since she was a child, and then she suddenly met someone who was kind to her and developed feelings for her, although this makes sense, why did she commit suicide? Suche hesitated to speak, but finally couldn't hold back, and said helplessly, I really didn't treat her that well. Jiang Si looked at him. Suche explained again, only one time, the fellow who took care of her called in the ward. I saw that the water in her glass was cold, so I changed her to a glass of hot water. I have to see many different patients every day. It is impossible to spend too much time on her. I am also troubled by the kind of last words she left. Even because of this incident, Li Xiaoli's fellow countrymen had arguing in the hospital for several days, arguing for compensation. Later, the police intervened, and the man left in despair, and Suche was also suspended for a week of investigation. There are too many gossips in the hospital. Even if he sticks to his post, he may not be able to calm down and work. With the nature of his work, once distracted, it is very dangerous. Therefore, in addition to the purpose of making him reflect, the suspension investigation is also a kind of protection for him. Jiang Si believed in Suche's character. A person with his qualifications really didn't need to play with other girls. She lowered her head and ate silently, her mind was always crowded with doubts. Is the other party really just simply unable to think about it? Coming from a poor place to work in a big city, I found that the prosperity of the city is just an illusion to me, and my dream is still out of reach. A hopeless love may become the last straw. But if he was really disheartened, Why bother to leave such obsessive last words? There seemed to be a strong resentment. Suche thought of Li Xiaoli's appearance at that time. Although she came from the countryside, she was pretty and fresh, with long eyelashes that could hide her thoughts when she drooped slightly. Every time he examined her, she kept her eyes closed and said nothing. Only that time, when she took the cup of hot water from him, she opened her big eyes, stared at him, and looked at him. Say, thank you. A very common sentence. Suche recalled that scene, stunned for a moment, and couldn't help but said, she said thank you to me at the time, and then for some reason, she said sorry again. Zhang Xi asked, does she feel that she is causing you trouble? Maybe. Suche sighed slightly. Zhang Xi thought for a while, then asked, how long has she been in your hospital? Suche said, she should stay for at least a month due to her injury, but she didn't bring enough money. After staying for 2 weeks, she was rushed out of the hospital. So she only knew you for 2 weeks. Zhang Xi had a bad feeling in his heart. How could she commit suicide for someone she had only known for 2 weeks? Suche shook his head, he couldn't figure it out either. Zhang Xi stretched out her hand and opened the drawer, looking for Li Xiaoli's medical records and last words inside. She felt that something was wrong, this matter was too wrong. Well, continue to find the feeling. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life. Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1639. The suicide note is still those few poems. No matter how you look at it, you can't see the problem. If Li Xiaoli really wanted to leave a message, why didn't she tell the police or the doctor directly, and insisted on using such an extreme method? At the price of death, just to leave this acrostic? If no one can solve the mystery, wouldn't she have lost her life in vain? This is also what Zhang Xi can't figure out the most. Li Xiaoli is only 17 years old, and her education level is not high. If there is really another layer of mystery hidden in the acrobatic poem, it will not be too deep. Zhang Xi looked at the Tibetan acronym frontally, backward, sideways, and upside down, but still couldn't understand it. Could it be that she is too sensitive? Li Xiaoli really just couldn't think about it for a while. She didn't talk much when she was hospitalized, and she did look a bit like depression, Suche said. Zhang Xi asked, what's the name of her fellow countryman? Suche shook his head. How can the doctor have time to remember the names of the patient's family members? Zhang Xi stopped talking, just stared at the acrostic poem thinking about something, with a particularly focused expression. Suche looked at the leftovers in the lunch box, guessing that she would not eat any more, so he silently cleaned them up and took them out to wash. Zhang Xi thought so seriously that she didn't even know when Suche would leave. When Suche finished his work, it was already 7 o'clock in the evening. When he came to see Zhang Xi again, he found that the ward was full of people. Xiaohu and Beizai were all there, and there was another police officer who had never seen him before, who seemed to be a technician, holding a laptop to retrieve surveillance video, while Zhang Xi was sitting on the hospital bed, with documents piled up in front of him. The small ward looks like a small investigation room. Suche was stunned. He walked to Zhang Xi's side and saw that she was concentrating on the document in her hand. There was a 2-inch photo on it, and the man in the photo looked familiar. Suche thought about it for a while, and finally remembered that this man was the one who sent Li Xiaoli to the hospital. His name is Zhang Jun. He has been in prison for robbery for several years. Here are his personal information. Zhang Xi handed one of the documents to Suche. Suche looked down. Zhang Jun, male, 25 years old, from Xianghu village, Fuiyang town. Xianghu village. He murmured, his thoughts were interrupted for a moment. Zhang Ci looked at him. Li Xiaoli's hometown is in Yuxiang village, Zayanan town. She and Zhang Jun are not from the same village at all. Li Xiaoli's last words were secretive, and it must be Zhang Jun. Su Che was horrified and couldn't help asking, "How did you find out?" "I had someone adjust the surveillance at the entrance of the hospital and use a computer for face recognition. Zhang Jun has been in prison before and has a criminal record, so the intelligence system can automatically identify him." Zhang Ci briefly explained, and the police officer over there said, "The suspect disappeared after entering the streets of Wancheng." "Call out the electronic map," Zhang Ci said. Xiao, who carried the laptop on the other side, and the electronic map showed the surveillance probes near the streets of Wancheng. Zhang Ci circled a few places and ordered, "Check all the surveillance in these places." Several people checked the surveillance with all their strength, trying to find out Zhang Jun's whereabouts, but the other party's figure no longer appeared in the surveillance. Baizai pointed to one of the surveillance blind spots, and said to Zhang Ci, "If Zhang Jun takes a ride here, it will be very difficult for us to track down." There were countless vehicles passing by that section of the road, and no one knew which vehicle Zhang Jun got into. Zhang Ci was discouraged for a while, and subconsciously stretched out her hand to touch the cigarettes on the cabinet next to her. After touching it twice, she didn't touch it, but touched Su Che's hand instead. "Zhang Ci." She withdrew her hand awkwardly, pretending to be calm, and said, "Hey, where is my water glass?" Su Che's eyes fell on the glass in front of him. He coughed lowly, and said, "I'll wash it." "Oh, thank you." Zhang Ci blushed slightly, and murmured softly, "Strange, why didn't I see it right in front of my eyes?" Su Che picked up the water glass and went out. Xiao, who immediately came over and said to Zhang Ci, "Boss, you can't do this, you have to take the initiative. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again." Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1640. Zhang Ci was still a little shy towards Su Che, but towards her subordinates, she had no gender awareness at all, and immediately scolded unceremoniously, "I asked you to come to work. You are not here to be a matchmaker. Isn't this job impossible?" Xiao, who curled his lips. "The identity has been found out, but the monitoring clues have been cut off. People on the fringes of society like Zhang Jun are not sure where they are, and where they are hiding." Hearing this, Zhang Ci's mood sank. Xiao, who leaned over again and said, "Boss, I really didn't mean you. Dr. Su likes you so much. He brings you water and food every day. You don't even have a smiling face. What a blow to others' enthusiasm." Zhang Ci's heart jumped twice, and she glanced at him. "Do you think he likes me?" "Sure." Xiao, who said decisively, "If you don't like it, why is it so nice to you? Does it mean something to you? If you don't believe me, ask Baizai." Zhang Ci looked at Baizai. Baizai was taken aback. You probably like it?" "Should?" Zhang Ci was a little confused again. "Doesn't Dr. Su have a cleanliness?" Xiao, who said, "He is willing to let the boss use his own lunchbox. Isn't that enough to explain the problem?" Baizai nodded quickly. "That's right, what little nonsense said makes sense. Boss, if you see the target, you should act quickly. Didn't you often teach us to be ruthless, accurate, and fast when facing the target? You can't be lazy at this time." Zhang Ci thought about it. Quick, accurate, ruthless. Su Che was very particular about washing the cup. First, he washed it with disinfectant water, then rinsed it with clean water 3 times, then rinsed it with warm boiled water, and finally poured water into it. When he returned to the ward with water, he found that the ward became quiet. All those people left just now, and only Zhang Ci was left sitting on the hospital bed, flipping through pages of documents. Seeing him coming in, Zhang Ci said, "To find out Zhang Jun's whereabouts, more police force is needed, but with the clues we have, we can't file a case for investigation. Suche gently put down the water glass. I thought about it just now. Jiang Si looked at him. Let's try to find a mage and see if we can find other clues. Well, good. Suche nodded. He is a doctor, and it is better to leave the case investigation to Jiang Si. After Suche responded, seeing that Jiang Si was still staring at him for a moment, he was slightly taken aback, and asked, "What's wrong?" Jiang Si struggled in her heart for a moment, and asked tentatively, "Suche, tomorrow, can I eat your meal?" Suche. "It's okay." Jiang Si blushed and waved her hands quickly. "Don't take it to heart, I just mentioned it casually." Suche was silent for a while, turned his eyes slightly, and asked in a low voice, "What kind of food do you like to eat?" She blurted out, "I like to eat whatever you cook." After finishing speaking, I felt that it was inappropriate, and it was too ambiguous to be so direct, so I quickly added, "I think your cooking is very good, no matter what kind of dishes you cook, no. I mean delicious, delicious." The corners of Suche's mouth twitched into a slight smile, his handsome brows and eyes stretched out very gently. "Can I eat fish? I'll bring you crispy fish tomorrow." "Eat, eat," Jiang Si nodded hurriedly. "Well, you rest first, and I'll come see you tomorrow." Suche smiled, seemingly in a good mood. Jiang Si became inexplicably anxious. Seeing Suche leave the ward, she felt like a kitten was scratching her heart, and felt uncomfortable all over. Love, love, I haven't been in love for more than 10 years, what should I do when I'm in love? When I feel anxious, I want to have one. She opened the drawer to find a cigarette, and her movements froze slightly. No, doctors should hate women who smoke, right? And the last time I said I was going to quit. That's right. Suche left and returned. Jiang Si quickly withdrew her hand. "Well, what's the matter?" "I forgot just now." Suche came over and picked up the cigarette in the drawer. "Let me throw it away for you, or you will feel very uncomfortable if you become addicted to cigarettes." Thanks."